It was our third anniversary. Dinner was ready. I was stretched out on the sofa, killing time scrolling through my phone while I waited for Rachel to get home from work. That's when I saw the post from Leo Preston, Rachel's ex. In the photo, they were holding each other in a tight embrace. The background was unmistakably the arrivals terminal at the airport. The caption, 3 years of dreaming. Finally real. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I had to be seeing things. I blew up the image, scanning every detail. The outfit matched. It was the same designer blazer and silk blouse Rachel had left the house in this morning. The face, the height, it was all her. Everything was perfect, right down to the last strand of her blonde hair, except for the wedding ring that had vanished from her finger. Once I was sure it wasn't fake, I let loose a string of curses at my phone screen, verbally annihilating Rachel's entire family tree. After venting, I finally calmed down. A cold smirk crept across my face. Rachel had just unlocked a new challenge in our marriage. Fine, I play her goddamn game. Let's see what the prize was at the end. Just as I put my phone down, it rang. It was Rachel. I answered, and her sweet, melodic voice came through the speaker. Hey, honey, I have a work dinner tonight, so I won't be home. My vision went dark for a second. Thank God I'd seen her asshole ex-boyfriend's Facebook post. Otherwise, that pair of horns would have been sitting squarely on my head tonight, and I'd have been none the wiser. A work dinner where? With who? I asked, my voice flat. Sensing the ice in my tone, Rachel's voice grew tense. It's the new VP the company just hired. It's his first day, so I'm taking him out for a welcome dinner. Yeah, I let out a dry, mocking laugh. Where are you eating? My questioning set her on edge, and her voice instinctively rose. Ethan, what is this? Are you accusing me of something? We've been married for 3 years, and you're actually accusing me? Classic. When people are guilty, they get loud. It's a pathetic attempt to sound righteous. I wasn't buying it. I pressed on. Where are you eating? Send me the location. Rachel knew that once I'd latched onto something, I wouldn't let go. She hung up. I called back. The call went straight to voicemail. Fine. Just fine. So, this was how she wanted to play it. I grabbed my car keys and stormed out the door. If I had to check every single restaurant in Austin, I was going to find her. She wasn't putting a single goddamn horn on my head before this divorce was final. I drove from one upscale restaurant to another, but there was no sign of Rachel's car. Panic started to set in. I was kicking myself for not installing a GPS tracker on her phone years ago. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. Another notification. Leo had posted again. I tapped it open immediately. The picture was of 2 arms intertwined, holding champagne flutes. The caption, 3 years. Nothing's changed. Not me, not you. Son of a bitch. They were interlocking arms and drinking champagne. My rage flared. But looking at the background, the custom millwork, the specific lighting, I recognized it instantly. It was the Grove, one of the most famous and exclusive private dining restaurants in the city. I floored it, the engine roaring as I sped through the streets. When I walked in, they were still sitting close, their arms linked as they drank. I pulled out my phone and recorded the whole disgusting scene, securing the evidence first. After I stopped recording, I pocketed my phone and walked up behind them. Well, Ms. Vance, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Fancy seeing you here. Rachel jumped at the sound of my voice. Her champagne flute slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. She yanked her arm back and scrambled to her feet, her face a mask of pure panic. Ethan, what are you doing here? I gave her a half smile. What's the matter? Is this your private little clubhouse? Am I not allowed? Rachel's face turned beet red. She stammered, unable to form a single coherent sentence. The man next to her stood up, smoothly extending a hand toward me. You must be Rachel's husband. I ignored his hand, narrowing my eyes as I sized him up. He had a polished, academic look, complete with gold-rimmed glasses, but his eyes glinted with a sly cunning. I knew this type all too well. He puts on a gentlemanly act, but underneath he's a calculating snake. The kind of guy who'd sell you a regular condom and call ultra-thin. Seeing the cold fury in my expression, Rachel knew an explosion was imminent. She quickly stepped between us. Honey, this is Leo Preston. He's the new VP I recruited from overseas. He's bringing a huge project with him. We were just discussing business. Oh, I feigned surprise. What kind of project is so big it requires the CEO to sell her body? The Grove was a high-end, private place. Most of the clientele were business people. My voice was loud enough to carry, and heads immediately turned in our direction. Rachel withered under the scornful gazes of the other diners. "Ethan, would you stop being so ridiculous? When did I sell my body?" I just scoffed. "Please, you're already linking arms for drinks. What's next? A hotel room to, foster the business relationship with some in-depth discussions." Before I could finish, Leo cut me off. "Mr. Cole, your mind is truly filthy. Rachel and I are just friends." Then he turned to her. "Rachel, I have to say, how could you marry a man this petty and insecure? Your taste in men has really gone downhill." 2. I'll give him this. The piece of trash really knew how to put on an act. But I'm not his father, so I had no reason to tolerate his bullshit. "Excuse me, but who forgot to zip up their fly and let you out? What kind of fucking idiot are you to stand there and lecture me?" Leo was stunned. He clearly didn't expect me to start slinging raw insults. His face turned a pasty white. "Rachel, your husband has no class. He's completely vulgar." Seeing him rattled brought me a sick sense of satisfaction. "Calling you a fucking idiot is a compliment." I shot back. "Does your mouth have a secondary function for expelling whatever's left of your brain?" "I'm talking to my wife. You decided to jump in. Who else am I supposed to insult?" I knew I couldn't get physical in a public place. That would turn me from the victim into the aggressor. I suppressed my rage and stopped engaging with him. I turned to Rachel. "You have 3 seconds to make this asshole disappear from my sight." I held up 3 fingers. Rachel panicked. She started pushing Leo. "Leo, please, you should go. We'll talk later." Leo shot me a glare, huffed, and walked out. With the restaurant quiet again, I sat down in the chair Leo had just vacated and watched Rachel with a patient smirk. She shifted uncomfortably, wanting to explain, but not knowing where to start. To prepare for our anniversary dinner, I'd skipped lunch. The only thing sustaining me for the past few hours had been pure rage. Now that I'd vented at the 2 of them, the anger subsided, and a wave of hunger hit me. I called the waiter over. He approached our table, glanced at me, then at Rachel, his face a picture of confusion. After all, 10 minutes ago, she'd been dining with another man. The table was the same, but the man had changed. He'd clearly never seen a swap like this before. As I took the menu to order, Rachel grabbed my hand, pleading, "Honey, let's just go." Her voice grated on my nerves. "What? You want me to eat that asshole's leftovers?" No, she said, flustered. "Honey, can we please just go home and eat?" I ignored her pleas, told the waiter to clear the table, and ordered 2 new dishes. I ate my meal slowly. As I ate, I planned the divorce. Some might ask why I jumped to divorce. Because my moral compass is intact. I don't have a cuckold fetish, and I'm damn sure not a masochist. If I could forgive something like this, I'd be the world's biggest doormat. But this had caught me completely off guard. Dividing our assets was going to be a nightmare. There's no such thing as forcing someone to walk away with nothing in a divorce. Even proving Rachel was the at-fault party to get a larger share would be difficult. A hug and a celebratory drink wouldn't be enough for a court to rule her at fault. The best-case scenario was an amicable, mutual agreement. But I never could have imagined that while I was planning our divorce, Rachel was planning how to get me to approve Leo's appointment as vice president of our company. 3. After dinner, I left the restaurant. Rachel followed me out like a lost puppy. We drove home in separate cars. When we got there, Rachel saw the happy 3rd anniversary cake on the dining table and froze. A wave of guilt washed over her face. Clearly, she'd forgotten. Her ex-boyfriend's return had probably made her so excited that a minor detail, like our wedding anniversary, had completely slipped her mind. I picked up the dishes I'd cooked earlier, ready to dump them in the trash. Rachel's hand shot out and grabbed mine. "Ethan, don't throw it out. I want to eat it." I laughed, a cold, empty sound. I put the plates down. "You want to eat it?" She nodded. "Fine. Eat every last bite. Don't leave anything." With that, I sat down on the sofa, lit a cigarette, and crossed my legs to watch the show. For courses, a soup, and a 2-layer cake. Rachel ate like it was torture. Every so often, she'd look up at me, her eyes begging me to tell her to stop. But I just stayed silent. It took her 2 full hours to clean every plate and demolish the cake. When she stood up, her stomach was visibly distended. It was a beautiful sight. I felt a surge of grim satisfaction. I hoped she'd eat herself sick. She clapped a hand over her mouth and ran to the bathroom. I heard the sound of violent retching. A while later, she emerged, clutching her stomach, her face pale. Now I felt even better. It was time to get down to business. I printed out the divorce agreement I'd drafted and placed it on the table in front of her. Read it. If there are no issues, sign it. Rachel picked it up, confused. When she saw the words divorce agreement, her face drained of all color. Ethan, you want to divorce me? I raised an eyebrow. What else? Just because I had dinner with a new company VP? I couldn't believe she was still trying to push that narrative. My temper flared. Rachel, are you forgetting I'm the second largest shareholder in this company? Who the hell approved his hiring? And another thing, does welcoming a new VP usually involve interlocking arms to drink champagne? Rachel's face went dark, but she had no comeback. I decided to spell it out for her. Rachel, that Leo guy's your ex-boyfriend, isn't he? With her sordid history out in the open, she finally broke. She grabbed my hand, her grip desperate. Honey, please, don't misunderstand. There's nothing between us. I snatched my hand away with a sneer. Don't fucking disgust me. If there's nothing between you, why did you go pick him up at the airport? If there's nothing, why were you drinking with your arms interlocked? I picked up the papers and threw them in her face. Cut the crap. Just sign the papers and let's give each other a clean break. Rachel bit her lip, meeting my gaze in a silent standoff, probably hoping I'd soften and take it all back. But seeing my unwavering resolve, she knew it was a lost cause. She chose to flee. As she reached the door, she turned and shot back. Ethan, you can forget it. I'm never going to divorce you. Then, she scrambled out the door and was gone. Watching her pathetic retreat, I clenched my jaw. Fina, you don't want to do this the easy way? Then don't blame me for what comes next. 4. Rachel and I started the company right after college. I never had any real entrepreneurial ambitions. I was planning on getting a stable government job. But Rachel wasn't satisfied with that. She was fiercely driven, obsessed with success. I once asked her why. She said she wanted to prove she was just as good as anyone else. I didn't buy it, but I was deeply in love with her back then, so I agreed to start the business with her. It wasn't until the company was stable that she told me the real story. During her freshman year, her boyfriend at the time wanted to study abroad. Rachel's family wasn't well off. They couldn't afford the tuition. Her boyfriend broke up with her without a second thought and left the country by himself. I started dating Rachel our junior year. I never knew she had an ex. It didn't matter to me. Everyone has a past. So what if she started the company out of spite? We were successful now, and that was a good thing. After we went public, Rachel held 40% of the company's stock, and I had 35%. I'm not a workaholic. I prefer having the freedom to do what I love. So I stepped down from the executive management team. It made sense for Rachel, as CEO and chairwoman, to have a slightly larger stake. After leaving my management role, I spent my days at the gym, reading, and living a relaxed, comfortable life. I used to think I was clever. I had my shares, so no matter how hard Rachel worked, she was working for me, for our family. Now I see how naive I was. If I hadn't found out about Leo today, I would have been the one pushed out. That settled it. I had to act immediately. Too many cautionary tales have taught me one thing. Never fully trust a successful woman, especially one whose heart is starting to wander outside her marriage. I was terrified that one day she'd stab me in the back. The next morning, I was out the door early. My first stop was to see Ken Jennings, the angel investor who'd been with us since our first funding round. I'd been the one to find Ken, and we'd become good friends over the years. He provided our initial seed money. So, after we became successful, I made sure his 8% stake was bumped up to a solid 10%. When I found him, I laid out my intentions. Ken's jaw dropped when I told him I wanted to buy his 10% stake. Ethan, what's going on? Are you two planning a corporate civil war? I had to hand it to him. The old fox saw right through me. Since he'd already guessed, there was no point in hiding it. I told him everything about Rachel picking up her ex from the airport and the two of them celebrating with champagne. Ken listened, clicking his tongue. Ethan, are you sure there isn't some misunderstanding? For years, we've all seen how Rachel treats you. It doesn't make sense for her to be this reckless. I snorted. You're underestimating the power of the one that got away. And you're underestimating a woman's need for vindication. The whole reason she started this company was to prove to that asshole Leo that he made a mistake breaking up with her. Now that she finally has the chance to rub her success in his face, do you really think she'll pass it up? Ken thought for a moment, then offered a different perspective. Ethan, is it possible she just wants to make him regret it? Nothing more. I waved his suggestion away. Whatever her reasons, the airport pickup and the champagne are unforgivable. I'm not willing to bet on her not cheating. It's too big of a risk. Would you bet on human nature, Ken? Faced with my direct question, Ken shook his head with a wry smile. If it were me, I wouldn't either. Exactly, I said. Never stake your future on the better angels of someone else's nature. He was convinced. He signed a stock transfer agreement on the spot. I wired him the money immediately. Thanks to years of dividends, I had more than enough cash on hand. With Ken's shares secured, I now held 45% of the company. It was time for phase 2. 5. Now, I just needed another 5% to have an unassailable majority. But I've been out of the company's day-to-day operations for too long. Most of the current shareholders only recognized Rachel's authority. I wasn't worried, though. Company policy dictated that a new VP appointment came with a 5% stock grant. If Rachel was determined to hire Leo, she wouldn't dare ask me for the shares. She'd have to give them from her own holdings. That was my plan. I was going to get Leo's shares. It sounded crazy, but I was confident I could pull it off. This was also, in a way, a final chance for Rachel. If she didn't bring Leo into the company, I'd never get those shares. When I got home, Rachel was already there. She was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, cooking dinner. Seeing her profile, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. It had been a long time since she'd cooked at home. When she saw me, a smile lit up her face. Honey, you're back. Relax for a bit. Dinner will be ready in a minute. I sat at the dining table, watching her move around the kitchen. After the food was served, we ate in silence. I put a piece of spicy crawfish etouffee in my mouth. Rachel watched me, her expression hopeful. How is it, honey? I nodded. Still good. You haven't lost your touch. Her smile bloomed. Yeah, she said wistfully. I remember when we were just starting out, and things were so tough. We'd go to the market every day, looking for the cheapest crawfish, haggling with the vendor. Back then, this was your favorite thing I made. Her words brought back a flood of memories. The Rachel for back then truly loved me. Every time we ate crawfish, she'd peel them for me, piling the tail meat on my plate. But some people can only share hardship, not success. Once they become wealthy, their hearts begin to wander, seeking new thrills or trying to mend old regrets. I put down my fork. If you have something to say, just say it. Rachel hesitated for a long moment before finally speaking. Honey, it's about Leo joining the company. Please don't misunderstand. There's nothing going on between us. Leo is an Ivy League graduate with executive experience overseas. He told me that if he comes on board, he can bring a massive new project to the company. I looked at her, my expression unchanging, but my heart had turned to ice. I simply didn't believe her reasons were purely professional. They'd already shared an intimate drink. Who would believe there were no personal feelings involved? Since her mind was made up, I decided to play along. After a long pause, I nodded. If you insist, then I agree. Rachel looked as if she couldn't believe her ears. Honey, you agree? I nodded again. A wave of relief and joy washed over her. Honey, I knew you were the best. Don't worry, I promise I'll keep my distance from him. And please, don't ever scare me by talking about divorce again. You have no idea how terrified I was. She abandoned her food and came over to hug me, acting cute and affectionate. I gently stroked her hair, a sour feeling rising in my chest. We had a good life. Why did she have to mess it up? Whether it was for a cheap thrill or to fix a past regret, was it really worth it? But you've made your choice, Rachel. There's no turning back for either of us now. We're on a one-way road to separation, and it's only going to get longer from here. 6. The next morning, I got a call from Ken. Ethan, they held a board meeting today. Rachel appointed that Leo guy as VP. Did you approve this? As the second largest shareholder, I rarely attended board meetings. Rachel always cast my proxy vote. On major decisions, she'd ask for my opinion first. I did, I said. Ken sighed, a note of regret in his voice. So you've really made up your mind? I sighed too. The moment I asked you to sell me your shares, my mind was made up. After hanging up, I knew it was time to make my move on Leo. There are only two surefire ways to destroy a man: women and gambling. I planned on hitting Leo with both at the same time. When I found Chloe Starr, she was in the back room of a dingy bar, sleeves rolled up, playing high-stakes poker with a group of rough-looking guys. I tapped her on the shoulder. She whipped around, instantly furious. Who the hell touches someone's shoulder during a hand? Are you? When she saw it was me, her scowl melted into a sycophantic grin. Ethan, hey. Looking at her, I felt a twinge of pity. I'd met Chloe by accident. I was on my morning run one day when I saw a few guys roughing up a young woman. Normally, I'm the type to mind my own business and walk away. But the moment she saw me, her eyes lit up like I was her savior. She sprinted over, grabbed my leg, and started screaming, "Dad, help me." I was completely baffled. The guys obviously didn't buy her act. I pulled out my phone and started dialing 911. That got them nervous. By the time I was connected, they had scattered. But Chloe didn't run. She just clung to my leg and launched into a sob story. Gambling-addicted father, sick mother, a younger brother to feed, her own tragic life. It was so over the top, I almost asked which strip club she worked at so I could come make it rain. In the end, I gave her $50,000. I'm not an idiot. If that money could genuinely help a young woman turn her life around, I considered it a worthy investment. After all, men have two great weaknesses: corrupting the innocent and saving the fallen. And if she just blew it all, I wasn't at a loss. Because Chloe was undeniably beautiful with a raw, magnetic sensuality. Few men could resist her. I had a feeling she might be useful one day. And now, that day had come. I pulled Chloe out of the underground poker game. Before I could even speak, she was grinning ear to ear. "Ethan, how'd you know I was broke again?" I had to laugh. "Isn't the 20 grand a month I give you enough?" Chloe pouted. But my luck's been a little off lately." I didn't have time for banter. "Chloe, I need you to do something for me. If you pull it off, there's 100 grand in it for you." Her eyes lit up. I laid out my entire plan. When I was done, she slapped her chest dramatically. "Don't you worry, Ethan. It's in the bag. Besides you, I've never met a man I couldn't wrap around my little finger." Watching her ample chest jiggle, I had to stop myself from saying, "Stop slapping yourself, or you're going to wrap me around your finger, too." 7. After briefing Chloe, I took her to a high-end department store and bought her a tailored business suit. We added a pair of half-frame glasses and a trip to a top salon for a sophisticated new hairstyle. When she walked out, I had to marvel at the transformation. This was exactly the look I was going for: smart, sexy, and just a little innocent. I'd asked her once, with her looks, why she didn't just find some rich, brainless heir to latch onto. She said that kind of life wasn't free. It wasn't what she wanted. Fair enough. Everyone has their own path. Who was I to judge? I went over the plan with her one more time. Chloe told me not to worry and to just wait for the good news. I nodded, got in my car, and headed home to wait for a signal. When Rachel got home, I was on the sofa, reading a book. She came over and curled up against me. "Honey, I'm still a little worried. Are you sure you're not upset about Leo becoming VP?" I smiled and shook my head. "Why would I be? You said he's in the past. I'm not that petty." Rachel let out a long sigh of relief and happily went to the kitchen to start dinner. Watching her, a strange thought crossed my mind. If you said she didn't love me, that wasn't right. She clearly cared about my feelings and always put me first. But if you said she did love me, then her actions were completely out of line. People truly are complex creatures. You can never really know what's going on in someone else's head. Hell, most people don't even know what's going on in their own. But I knew exactly what was on my mind. Divorce Rachel and maximize my financial gain. Love, affection, all that stuff is fleeting. Money is real. 3 days later, Chloe called. She made contact with Leo, a simple, staged fender bender, and the two were officially acquainted. I reminded her not to rush things, to take it slow. Chloe said she understood, then complained about how exhausting it was to pretend to be a naive good girl. I just laughed and said, "I'll double your bonus." She immediately brightened up and hung up the phone. I had no doubts about Chloe's charm, and I wasn't worried about her commitment to the job. She needed the money. I promised her that if she completed the plan, she'd not only get my payment, but she could also keep whatever she managed to squeeze out of Leo. Money makes the world go round. She wasn't working for me. She was working for the cash. Of course, I wasn't just sitting around. I started showing up at the office regularly. Rachel was surprised to see me. Honey, you have a lot of free time lately? I leaned back in her CEO chair and grinned. Just came to keep an eye on things. Make sure the foundation of my house isn't cracking. Rachel understood my meaning. She pouted, slightly annoyed. Honey, I already promised you. I would never do anything to betray you. I nodded. Before this divorce was final, I would not allow a single horn to be placed on my head. At the office, I had Ken keeping an eye on things for me. Outside, I had Chloe. I basically had a 24/7 watch on Leo. I was lounging in Rachel's office when Leo walked in without knocking. He saw me and put on a friendly smile. Mr. Cole, you're here too. I looked at him, my own smile laced with ice. Get out. Leo froze, looking from me to Rachel, completely bewildered. Rachel was just as confused. This is the CEO's office, not a public market. Did you knock? Rachel's face went pale as she realized what was happening. Leo saw my dead serious expression, snorted, and turned to leave. A moment later, a knock came at the door. Mr. Cole, may I come in? He addressed me, not Rachel. A clear attempt to drive a wedge between us. The bastard. He was a real piece of work. Too quiet. Can't hear you. Leo raised his voice. Mr. Cole, may I come in? What are you, a goddamn mouse? Can't you speak with some conviction? Leo's anger flared, and he started yelling his request. I let him shout until his voice was raw before I finally told him to enter. When he opened the door, a crowd of curious employees had gathered outside. They were all whispering amongst themselves. Leo's face was beet red. He quickly shut the door, blocking out the prying eyes. Rachel, fearing I'd escalate things further, quickly interjected. Leo, what did you need? Leo avoided my gaze, his voice hoarse. Ms. Vance, I need to go to Las Vegas for a business trip. Rachel looked puzzled. Vegas? What for? Do we have business there? Leo nodded. Rachel still trusted him. She approved it immediately. I watched Leo with a mocking smirk, saying nothing. He forced himself to meet my gaze for a few seconds before his nerve broke. He excused himself and left the office. After he was gone, I stood up and left too. The plan was proceeding beautifully. 8. Rachel had no idea why Leo was going to Vegas. But I did. Chloe had called me the day before, complaining. She said Leo was a tough nut to crack. His wallet was deeper than she'd expected. She'd been bleeding him for days, and he was still standing. I told her to take him to Vegas. Vegas is a magical place. It has a way of teaching everyone that becoming poor is actually quite simple. 4 days later, Chloe called. Ethan, Leo's broke. I was curious just how much he'd lost. Chloe started counting it out for me. Leo arrived with $100,000 and lost it all on the first day. Then he pulled another $200,000 from his accounts. Back on the casino floor, he was betting $20,000, $30,000 a hand. He burned through that in less than 2 hours. He was desperate. Right in front of Chloe, he started calling friends and family, begging for money, all pride forgotten. After scraping together another $200,000, he stormed back to the tables. This time was even worse. He played 6 hands and lost every single one. Other gamblers started using him as a reverse good luck charm, betting against whatever he played. He trudged back to the hotel room, dejected. But the gambler's itch, the desperate need to win it all back, kept him from eating or sleeping. He called his parents, lied about a can't-miss investment opportunity, and convinced them to give him their entire life savings. They believed him. With $500,000 of his parents' money in his account, Leo dragged a sleeping Chloe out of bed and headed back downstairs. It was like the money came with a lucky charm. He turned $50,000 into $400,000 in just 3 hands. If he had walked away then, he would have not only recouped his losses, but also been up by $100,000. Even Chloe was impressed by his streak and was getting worried he might actually quit while he was ahead. But why would he quit? He grandly gave Chloe $20,000 in chips and told her that if he lost $80,000, he'd stop. He would just consider the trip a vacation for her. Chloe took the chips, her smile sweeter than honey. As a seasoned player, she knew he wouldn't leave until he'd lost everything. Sure enough, after losing the $80,000, Chloe put on a show of trying to convince him to walk away. He hesitated. He pulled out another $100,000. He said if he lost this, he would really leave. He could handle losing his own money, but he needed to protect the money from his family and friends. Leo's bad luck streak returned with a vengeance. The $100,000 vanished in minutes. Without a moment's hesitation, He cashed in everything he had left and went on a gambling frenzy. For 4 days, he played until it was all gone. Did he ask for the 20 grand back? I asked Chloe. Of course he did, she whined. By the end, he was a complete maniac. I was scared not to give it back. Bullshit, I scoffed. The casino comps on his player's card must have been at least 40 grand. You cashed that out, didn't you? Chloe's voice turned syrupy. You know me so well, Ethan. Amateurs in Vegas never realize that their player's card tracks their total betting volume, and the casino pays a small percentage back as a rebate. Most beginners never bother to claim it. The plan had reached its final stage. I gave Chloe the time and location for the final transaction and hung up. 9. In the CEO's office. I stood outside, watching through a crack in the door. Leo was a wreck. He was unshaven, his hair was a mess, and he looked completely defeated. He was on his knees, begging Rachel. Rachel, please, just help me this one time. My friends, my relatives, they're blowing up my phone, demanding their money back. Rachel looked down at the man kneeling before her. Her eyes were filled with disappointment and resentment, but she remained silent. Leo broke down. Rachel, I know you still love me. If you help me pay off my debts, I'll be your lover. Is that okay? I won't ask you to divorce your husband. Whenever you need me, I'll be there for you. No strings attached. I scratched my head. So this is what a gambling addict looks like at rock bottom, willing to throw away all dignity and self-respect for money. Rachel backed away toward her desk, disgusted. Leo, who told you I like you? I brought you into this company because of your degree and your overseas connections. Leo shot to his feet, his voice rising with emotion. I don't believe you. I don't believe you have no feelings for me. If you don't, why did you pick me up from the airport? Why did you drink champagne with me? On that point, Rachel had no answer. I nodded to myself in agreement. I didn't believe her either. Leo advanced on Rachel. He leaned in to kiss her. But Rachel grabbed the solid marble paperweight from her desk and smashed it against his head. Get out, Leo. I'm not helping you. And for the record, I stopped having feelings for you a long time ago. I brought you here to show you how successful I've become without you. The only person I love is my husband. I had to cover my mouth to keep from laughing. I didn't believe a single word she said. If Leo hadn't turned out to be such a pathetic loser, if he had continued to patiently sweet-talk her, who's to say she wouldn't have fallen for it? When a future looks bright, who wants to look back at the past? Leo stared at Rachel, his eyes burning with hatred. Rachel, you're going to regret this. Clutching his bleeding head, he stormed out of the office. I had already ducked into a nearby alcove. It wasn't time for the final reveal yet. I needed to stay hidden. That night at home, Rachel was acting strangely. She clung to me, constantly telling me how much she loved me. I knew what was happening. Her other path had become a dead end, and now she was trying to come back to me. Too bad for her. I'm not a recycling bin. 10. Chloe called to tell me it was done. I reconfirmed the time and location of the transaction with her. After hanging up, I let out a long breath. It was almost over. Chloe hadn't needed to do much. She just casually mentioned to Leo that she knew a lot of wealthy people who might be interested in buying his company's shares. Leo stuck to her like glue, begging her to make an introduction. He even promised her a huge finder's fee. Chloe told me that Leo had started fantasizing about taking the money back to Vegas for one epic comeback tour to win it all back. I had to laugh. He could fantasize all he wanted. Once he was behind bars, he'd have all the time in the world to dream. On the day of the deal, the man I'd hired arrived at the agreed-upon location, a nondescript coffee shop. A few minutes later, a beaming Leo walked in with Chloe on his arm. I was sitting in a cafe across the street, watching everything through a pinhole camera feed. Leo was practically vibrating with impatience. As soon as they sat down, he got straight to the point. Can the money be wired today? My guy, a private investigator named Rick, nodded. Mr. Preston, I need to see the share transfer agreement first. Leo eagerly produced the document and handed it over. Rick took it and began to read it carefully. As he read, his expression soured. Mr. Preston, you've held these shares for less than a month. Are you even allowed to transfer them? Leo was speechless. It was an external transfer, subject to a 36-month lockup period. It also required the approval of a majority of the shareholders, and existing shareholders had the right of first refusal. Not a single part of his proposed sale was legitimate. But Leo was blinded by the money. He gritted his teeth. Don't worry. I guarantee there won't be any problems. Rick looked him straight in the eye. You're sure? Leo nodded firmly. Rick just smiled, said nothing more, and started tapping on his phone to initiate the wire transfer. A moment later, a notification pinged on Leo's phone. He looked down, saw the $3 million deposit in his account, and broke into a grin so wide it looked like it might split his face. Chloe, I owe you big time for this. Give me your account number. I'm sending you $100 grand. Chloe suddenly jumped to her feet and backed away from him as if he were toxic. What do you mean you owe me? I didn't do anything. Why would you give me money? Leo stared at her, utterly confused. Just then, 2 police officers walked into the coffee shop. Who called the police? Rick raised his hand. I did, officers. I believe I'm the victim of an attempted fraud. Leo's face went slack. Rick handed the share agreement to the officers. I suspect this agreement is not legally binding, but he repeatedly assured me it was fine. To prevent any financial loss on my part, and to save you the trouble of tracking down my money later, I decided to call you first. An officer glanced at the agreement, then pulled out a pair of handcuffs and cuffed Leo. Sir, you'll need to come with us to the station. You're under suspicion of fraud. Leo just stood there, completely stunned. With the scene set, it was my turn to make an entrance. I stood up and walked across the street. I reached the door just as the 2 officers were escorting Leo out. Well, look at this. You here for coffee, too? I asked the downcast Leo. He looked up when he saw me and then saw Chloe giving me a subtle wink. The pieces finally clicked into place. Ethan, it was you. This was all your setup. I held up my hands in mock horror. Careful what you say. I could sue you for slander. Leo lunged forward like a madman, but the officers held him tight. I leaned in close to his ear and whispered, so only he could hear. So, Leo, how was that champagne? You're going to prison, but your parents are still out here. The parents whose life savings you gambled away. And what about all your friends and relatives? Do you think they might just harass your parents to death, trying to get their money back? As a son, failing to care for them in their old age is shameful enough. But I don't even know what to call you. You're truly. One of the officers pushed me back. What are you doing? Don't interfere with police business. I sighed dramatically. I hadn't even gotten to the best part. I quickly put on a smile and backed away. Sorry, officer. I'm just here for a coffee. We know each other, just saying hi. I'm a good guy, a model citizen. The officer shot me a dirty look and led Leo away. Watching his slumped, defeated figure disappear down the street, I burst out laughing. 11. On the day of Leo's sentencing, Rachel and I sat in the courtroom gallery. We had no choice. As the 2 primary shareholders of the company whose stock was at the center of the case, our presence was required. When the judge announced that, due to the massive sum involved in the fraud, Leo was being sentenced to the maximum penalty, life in prison, he completely collapsed. On the way back from the courthouse, I immediately called a board meeting. At the meeting, Rachel sat at the head of the table, her mood visibly dark. She was the one who had pushed for Leo's hiring against everyone's advice. She was the one who had given him shares. This failure was hers, and hers alone to bear. During the meeting, Rachel gave a solemn apology, admitting her error in judgment and promising to always consider the board's input in the future. The other shareholders probably thought that was the end of it. They were wrong. I suddenly spoke up. Given that our chairwoman has made such a colossal mistake, I think it's best she resigns. We need a leader who isn't blinded by love, because that kind of thinking is going to bankrupt all of us. Rachel stared at me in disbelief. The other shareholders looked just as confused, unsure of what was happening. Only Ken looked completely unfazed, a knowing look on his face. Ethan, what are you trying to say? Besides me, who else is qualified to be the chairperson? I stood up and walked to her side. Me, of course. Don't you all think I'd be a perfect fit? A few of them shook their heads. My reputation as a hands-off, leisure-loving shareholder was deeply ingrained. Since they weren't giving me the respect I deserved, I decided to drop the act. Time to lay my cards on the table. As the company's largest shareholder, I'm exercising my authority. I hereby announce the removal of Rachel Vance from the position of chairwoman. The shareholders started laughing as if I'd told a great joke. Rachel's face flushed. Ethan, stop fooling around. I know you're just trying to cheer me up because I'm in a bad mood. I was furious. These people really had no respect for me. I pulled out the documents for my original 35% stake and the transfer agreement from Ken and slammed them on a conference table. I hold 45% of this company's stock. Is there any question that I'm the largest shareholder? The laughter died instantly. The room fell silent. Rachel looked at the date on Ken's transfer agreement and then looked at me, her eyes wide with dawning horror. Ethan, you started planning this that long ago. I shrugged. What did you expect? For me to wait until you and your boyfriend teamed up to force me out with nothing? Rachel pressed her lips together, silent. Perhaps she wanted to fight back, but she only held 35% of the shares. The 5% she gave to Leo was now evidence held by the court. Its ultimate fate was uncertain. She might have had a chance if all the other shareholders backed her, but one look around the table told her that wasn't going to happen. They were all staring at their shoes. Not everyone was a loyal friend like Ken, willing to sell their stake. Who would sell the goose that lays golden eggs? Rachel was defeated. She had no choice but to accept the outcome. I pulled out the divorce agreement and placed it in front of her again. Read it over. If it looks fine, sign it. She looked at me with pleading eyes, but I felt nothing. Rachel, the only reason I didn't come after you directly is because you had the sense to hit Leo with that paperweight. You maintained a sliver of integrity. But you can't deny the emotional affair. And whether the betrayal is big or small, I can't accept it. So stop fighting. Just sign. Rachel knew I was serious. She knew that I had been meticulously planning this divorce for weeks. If she refused to sign, who knew what other schemes I had waiting for her? She was afraid. She picked up the pen and, with a trembling hand, signed her name. I nodded, satisfied. Rachel stood up, her head bowed, and started to walk out of the conference room. I called out to her, Rachel, if you're willing to hand over another 20% of your shares and stay on as CEO, I'll give you a chance to win me back. She stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes lighting up with a flicker of hope. Really? I gave her a firm, confident nod. Later, as Ken and I were leaving the building, he slung an arm around my shoulder. Ethan, are you really going to give her a chance to win you back? I shot him a sideways glance. What are you, crazy? Of course not. Ken looked baffled. Then why did you? I shook my head. Do you have the skills to run this company, Ken? Doi. Since neither of us knows what we're doing, and we have a perfectly good workhorse right here, why not use her? It's just recycling. All I did was dangle a carrot in front of the donkey. A carrot she'll never, ever be able to reach. Ken nodded slowly, a look of profound understanding on his face. I handed him the stock transfer agreement. Here's your 10% back. He took it without hesitation, grinning from ear to ear. I stretched my arms toward the setting sun. Being a hands-off chairman, with someone else busting their ass to make you money, it felt pretty damn good.